The defending champion was supposed to cruise. The $2.37 million prize pool was supposed to stay in familiar hands, but nobody told Alex Eala that she wasn't supposed to win. In front of a roaring, flag-waving Filipino crowd that turned Washington into Manila for a night, the 21-year-old sensation did the unthinkable. She dismantled Leylah Fernandez on her own turf, avenged her Stuttgart humiliation, and sent shockwaves through the entire WTA Tour. This wasn't just a match. This was a statement. This was the moment Alex Eala became a household name. The air inside the Fitzgerald Tennis Center was electric. Not the kind of electricity that comes from a packed stadium, though the stands were indeed overflowing with passionate fans waving Philippine flags. No, this was something deeper. This was the electricity of redemption. Just 3 months earlier, on the red clay of Stuttgart, Alex Eala had walked off the court with her head hanging low. Leylah Fernandez had handed her a brutal 6-1, 6-4 defeat, a scoreline that left no room for interpretation. The Canadian had been clinical, ruthless, almost dismissive. For Eala, that loss wasn't just a defeat, it was fuel. It was a scar that she carried with her every single day since April. And now, standing on the hard courts of Washington, she had her chance to erase that memory. But the stakes were even higher than personal revenge. This was the Mubadala DC Open, a WTA 500 event with a staggering $2.37 million prize purse. Fernandez wasn't just any opponent. She was the defending champion, the woman who had lifted the trophy last year after a stunning run that included wins over Jessica Pegula and Elena Rybakina. The Canadian had beaten Anna Kalinskaya 6-1, 6-2 in the final, announcing herself as a force to be reckoned with on American soil. She was the 7th seed, the crowd favorite, the established star. Eala? She was the upstart, the rising Filipina phenom who had turned heads with her run to the Miami semifinals in 2025, but who still had something to prove. The weight of history pressed down on both women's shoulders. For Fernandez, it was the pressure of defending a title. For Eala, it was the burden of expectation from a nation of over 110 million people watching her every move. The contrast in their seasons told a compelling story. Fernandez had struggled with consistency in 2026, carrying a 12-19 win-loss record into Washington. She had reached quarterfinals in Stuttgart, Madrid, and Strasbourg. But the magic of 2025 had faded. Eala, meanwhile, was having the best season of her young career, winning 30 of her 48 matches. She had just become the first Filipino to reach the 4th round of a Grand Slam at Wimbledon. The momentum was on her side. But momentum means nothing against a champion like Fernandez, a woman who had beaten some of the biggest names in tennis. The stage was set. The history was written. Now it was time to rewrite it. If there was one thing Alex Eala had proven in the days leading up to this showdown, it was that she never, ever gives up. Just 24 hours earlier, she had walked onto the same court against Olympic gold medalist Zheng Qinwen, a woman who had beaten her in a 3-hour thriller at the 2023 Asian Games. That match had been a nightmare. Eala lost the first set 4-6 and found herself down a break in the second, staring into the abyss of a first-round exit. But then something clicked. She won 7 consecutive games, storming back to take the second set 6-4 and the decider 6-1. The victory took 2 hours and 28 minutes, and it drained every ounce of energy from her body. But it also gave her something priceless: belief. But Eala had other plans. From the very first point, it was clear that this was not the same player who had crumbled on the clay of Germany. Her footwork was sharper. Her ground strokes had more venom. Her serve, once a vulnerability, was now a weapon. She moved Fernandez around the court with surgical precision, exposing the Canadian's vulnerabilities on the hard court surface. Eala had done her homework. She knew that Fernandez's game, while spectacular, could be disrupted by relentless pace and depth. She knew that the Canadian's forehand, her primary weapon, could break down under pressure. And she knew that Fernandez had not been playing her best tennis all year. This wasn't just a match. This was an examination. And Eala had studied harder than anyone. The Filipino community in Washington had turned out in force. Tournament chairman Markine had revealed that over 80% of ticket inquiries in the month leading up to the tournament were about Alex Eala. "Honestly, I think it's more," he had said, "virtually all." The fans didn't disappoint. Every Eala winner was met with deafening roars. Every Fernandez error was greeted with gasps of disbelief. The energy in the stadium was palpable, and Eala fed off it like a lioness on the hunt. This was her house now, and she was about to make history. The first set was a war of attrition. Fernandez, the more experienced player on paper, tried to impose her will early, using her left-handed spin to pull Eala wide and open up the court. But Eala was unshakable. She absorbed the pressure, redirected the pace, and waited for her opportunities. The rallies were long, brutal, and breathtaking. Both women covered every inch of the court, sliding, lunging, and stretching to keep points alive. The crowd was on its feet for what felt like every single point. This wasn't just tennis. This was gladiatorial combat. Then came the moment that changed everything. Midway through the set, with the score locked at 4-4, Eala found herself facing a bright point. Fernandez had been attacking her backhand all game, trying to expose what she perceived as a weakness. But Eala had been expecting it. She had spent countless hours in practice shoring up that very shot, turning it from a liability into a weapon. On this crucial point, Fernandez hit a heavy cross-court forehand that should have been unreturnable. Eala didn't just return it, she ripped a down-the-line backhand winner that left Fernandez frozen in disbelief. The stadium erupted. Eala clenched her fist and let out a roar that could be heard across the Potomac. She had broken Fernandez's serve. She had taken control. The Canadian, who traces her Filipino heritage to her mother, had been looking to kickstart her inconsistent season with a deep run in Washington. Instead, she was sent packing in the round of 16, her title defense crumbling in spectacular fashion. But to her credit, Fernandez handled the defeat with grace. In her post-match press conference, she praised Eala's performance, calling it exceptional and acknowledging that she had been outplayed in every department. It was a classy response from a classy champion, and it earned her respect from fans around the world, but the night belonged to Eala. In her own press conference, she was emotional, humble, and fiercely proud. "I knew I could do it," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "I believed in myself. I believed in all the work I've put in. And I knew that if I played my game, I could beat anyone." She spoke about the support from the Filipino community, about the sacrifices her family had made, and about her dream of one day winning a Grand Slam. It was a moment of raw, unfiltered honesty that endeared her to millions. This wasn't just a tennis player celebrating a win. This was a young woman fulfilling a destiny. The financial implications were significant too. With the victory, Eala advanced to the quarterfinals of a two-time $37 million tournament, guaranteeing herself a substantial payday and valuable ranking points. But the money was almost beside the point. What mattered was the statement she had made. She had beaten a former US Open finalist. She had beaten a defending champion. She had beaten a player who had dominated her just months earlier. The message was clear. Alex Eala is here, she is ready, and she is not going anywhere. Alex Eala's stunning victory over Leylah Fernandez at the $237 million DC Open is more than just a memorable upset. It is a seismic shift in the landscape of women's tennis. For years, the narrative has been dominated by a handful of superpowers, the United States, Russia, Poland, and the Czech Republic, to name a few. But the Philippines? A nation of over 110 million people with a deep, passionate love for sports but a relatively modest tennis infrastructure? The idea of a Filipino player competing at the highest level of the sport, let alone beating a top 35 player and defending champion, was once considered a pipe dream. Alex Eala has turned that pipe dream into reality. Her journey to this moment has been nothing short of extraordinary. At just 21 years old, she has already achieved what no Filipino tennis player, male or female, has ever achieved. She reached the fourth round of Wimbledon, becoming the first Filipino to do so in a Grand Slam singles event. She reached the semifinals of the Miami Open in 2025, beating some of the biggest names in the sport along the way. And now, she has added a victory over a former US Open finalist and defending DC Open champion to her growing list of accomplishments. The trajectory is clear. Alex Eala is on her way to the top. But her success is about more than just personal glory. It is about inspiration. Every young girl in the Philippines who picks up a tennis racket now has a role model to look up to. Every aspiring athlete in Southeast Asia now has proof that dreams can come true, no matter where you come from. Eala's victory is a beacon of hope for an entire region, a reminder that talent, hard work, and belief can overcome even the most daunting obstacles. Tennis fans in the Philippines, who have long supported the sport from afar, finally have a homegrown hero to cheer for on the biggest stages. Looking ahead, the future is incredibly bright for Eala. With her victory in Washington, she has proven that she can compete with and beat the best players in the world. Her game is tailor-made for hard courts, with her powerful ground strokes, improved serve, and relentless athleticism. The US Open, which begins in just a few weeks, now looms as a massive opportunity. If Eala can carry this momentum into Flushing Meadows, there is no telling how far she can go. A Grand Slam title, once a distant fantasy, now feels within reach. But for now, Eala is focused on the present. She has a quarterfinal match to prepare for, another opportunity to make history, and a nation of fans cheering her on every step of the way. The $2.37 million DC Open has given us one of the great Cinderella stories of the season. And the best part? This story is far from over. Alex Eala is just getting started. The tennis world better buckle up, because the Filipina phenom is coming for everything. If you enjoyed this latest tennis update and want to stay ahead of the biggest stories in the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the action. See you in the next video.